Thank you very much for coming along. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Will McCutcheon, and I'm working in the Public Information Unit in the Incident Control Centre in Bairnsdale for a range of fires across East Gippsland. We really appreciate you coming out tonight to spend a bit of time to get a better understanding of what's been going on and what's likely to happen over coming days and weeks. I'd like to pay my respects on your behalf to the traditional owners of the country we're meeting on here today, and we're meeting on Gunai Kurnai country here too, so I pay my respects to Gunai Kurnai elders and ancestors and their children who are their hope for the future. I'd like to pay my respects to any Aboriginal people that we have in the room with us tonight, and pay particular respects to people who may have come up from the Lake Tyers Trust to join us tonight. Tonight we've got a fairly simple agenda. I'll do these introductions and in a moment I'll run through in a bit more detail how we expect the evening to run. I'll throw to Stuart McConnell. Stuart is, I'll get your title right, Stuart, General Manager Place and Community at East Gippsland Shire. So thank you very much, Stuart, for coming along to contribute. It's much appreciated. So after a few words from Stuart, then we'll hand to Andy Gillum. Andy Gillum on my right is the incoming incident controller for this event, this incident control team. Andy's highly experienced incident controller, comes from Traralgon. He was worried on the way down that he might not be perceived as a local, but I said, for goodness sake, you're from Gippsland. And he's done a lot of fire work across Gippsland, across the rest of the state, interstate most recently. So a highly experienced person to run the control team from Bairnsdale. Andy will present for about 20 minutes or so. And I would ask you, I'm sure you will have questions, so we have allowed time for questions. So rather than asking your questions while the presenters are speaking, if you can hold them until question time, and then hello Fly, I will do my best to ensure that everybody gets a chance to ask their question and have a suitable person respond to it. After that we'll close, and there will be an amount of time at the end of the meeting that if you wanted to have a one-on-one discussion, either with Andy and myself or Stuart as the speakers, or one of the representatives of other emergency services who are with us tonight, feel free to take that opportunity, because sometimes it's easier to have your question attended to as a one-on-one rather than from the floor. Now I believe we have Julian Davis with us. Julian, are you here? Julian, welcome, thank you. While we're a CFA captain, really appreciate you being here, Julian. Thank you for coming. And Phil Lukes, are you here? No problem. Phil is the Lakes Entrance CFA captain. And Jeff Bassett, was he? Jeff, were you able to come? Great. Nice to see you, Jeff. Jeff is the Tambo Group officer. And I recognise those people because one of the really important elements of what we do is, as part of Forest Fire Management Victoria, we work hand in glove with the CFA in order to deal with these fires. And the local crews and the local contribution is really valuable. With that, I think that's probably enough from me. Stuart.
Thank you. You might like to mention this live streaming. Yes, okay. So just for those people who weren't able to make it tonight, what we've been doing with the community meetings is making them available through live stream. And so things are being streamed onto the internet through our YouTube channel. For future reference, if you need to go, there'll be notices on, for example, Council's Facebook page if you want to click onto that and find the feed. So if in a future meeting you can't make it, that's how you can do it. So, but just recognising that we are streaming this so that everyone can get the information. So my job's pretty quick and simple. Firstly, it's to, again, recognise and acknowledge the really hard work that's been going on from Forest Fire Management, which is a number of state agencies coming together in the first instance, and then CFA, and particularly volunteers, so recognising that that's people taking time out of their other things that they need to do to really work to keep communities safe. So recognising those efforts of people coming together to try and really address this fire. And when we talk about these sort of circumstances, there's a whole lot of organisations that come together to work really closely together and try and make things work seamlessly for community. It is, you know, the fire agencies, but also police, ambulance and many others that come together to help try and get the arrangements in place. So thank you on behalf of Council for all that work. Council's role in this, there's a number of things that we do to support the agencies directly combating the fires, but probably the most direct thing that we do is when we're asked by the Incident Control Centre, we'll set up the Relief Centre. So it's something that we do in response to a request from the Incident Control Centre, and then that service is made available if we do get to that point. But that's something we do with that advice. And there's a range of other things we're doing too in terms of just helping out where we're instructed around road closures and things like that. So that's the sorts of things that Council do. But again, we're sitting there as part of in the Incident Control Centre when needed to be available and provide that support as required. So they're the things we're doing. And again, just to acknowledge the work for Forest Fire Management and CFA coming together to do, and we really appreciate that on behalf of the community. Thank you.
My time? Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, and thanks for the introduction, Will. I'm not nice and close. Okay. Look, my job really tonight is to try and paint a bit of a picture of what we've been doing in the firefighting sense since Thursday when these fires broke out. What's likely to lie ahead for us, and what you guys can do as community. So in order to do that, I think it's time that we take a minute just to reflect on the difficult few days that we've had as a community. So when I say that, and I say we, I'm part of the community when I'm in the Incident Controller chair, and I'm part of my community. So I acknowledge that, you know, you guys have been patient, you've been understanding, and you've been respectful, and particularly respectful to each other. And these are the times when we need to do that. So I acknowledge the community volunteers, or the volunteers in your community, particularly the CFA and the CFA volunteers. This is when these guys really step up and really do become our community heroes. And all the bits and pieces that go on in the background with the Red Cross, the community health centres and all of that. This is the time, even though today's, you know, there's no fire breathing down our neck, but this is the opportunity for us to bring you guys together, to give you some information, and for you guys to think about what can you do in this community space, because that's what community is. So I say thank you already up front for the work that you've done to get through these last 5 or 6 difficult days, because there's a lot, there's going to be a lot, it's going to be a lot harder road to travel as we go further on in the summer. Remember, it's still spring, even though, you know, these events can change quickly if we get rain, but summer hasn't even officially started yet, and we've got fire breathing down our neck. So just take the time to think about the role that you've played so far, and think about how you can step up in your local community to help those other people that haven't got the courage to ask for help or don't really understand the situation, because many of you might not. This is becoming an all too frequent event now, fire in our landscape. So for me, I've been doing this role for over 30 years, and we did it sporadically 30 years ago. It started to increase, and now it's almost full time. If we're not here, we're interstate, as Will said, or we're overseas in North America, or Spain, or Greece, or wherever we go, helping our comrades there. So we need to understand that we're in a very different landscape now with the dryness that we've got. What causes it? That's another debate for another night, but it's a dry landscape. So having said that, we've got quite a large team set up working out of the Bairnsdale Incident Control Centre at the moment, supported by crews working out of Nowa and crews working out of Swifts Creek. So we've got in all about 300 firefighters on the line, including many CFA volunteers, a number of state aircraft, and a whole heap of heavy plant. When you look at the maps behind me, we've got the overview map. It couldn't be a worse situation, to be perfectly honest. not only have we got at the moment 7 going fires in the landscape, all of them that are left going are in really difficult country. It's either heavily forested, it's either got difficult access, or there aren't too many control options. So, you know, without painting any kind of good picture, all of these current 7 fires are going to be really difficult to round up in a small area. Yesterday we had 15 mils of rain. That was pretty exciting. Most people haven't seen, if you want to see rain come down at Traralgon, it rains every second day. But most people haven't seen a good rain event like that. Now, 15 mils of rain. So if you guys look out to the northwest, the 6 Mile fire, the one just to the east of Bruthen, broke containment line this afternoon, or wasn't really contained, but it broke away to the northeast, and it's running at the moment fairly hard. So that's doing that after 15 mils of rain. Now, I'm not saying this to alarm people. What I'm saying this is to let you guys know, no matter what we throw at these fires or how hard we work, there's still a high chance, or it's very likely, they're going to still make runs on bad weather days. So that's what we need to talk about, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. So if you're looking in the landscape, it's the 6 Mile fire, or the Bruthen fire, that's probably of most concern to this community. If you're further afield from this community, the fire up at W Tree, the fire at Galanapy there, it's in extremely difficult country, very dry fuels. And then we've got the Fern Tree Creek fire at Ensay, and the Martha Vale fire in the Haunted Stream. Martha Vale is one again to watch out. So I've only said there's 4 fires there, but there's another couple further out in the forest that are of concern as well. And there are also a number of fires in the Hume region, a long way north of here, but if we think back to the big runs of 2003, you know, we saw a fire come out of the northeast and go all the way down to the Yalmy Road. So everything and anything's possible, and that's just a realistic picture that I want to paint for people, because that's the picture that we've got in front of us in the IMT. So we've got a reasonably good spell of weather, and when I say that, when you think about Thursday when these fires started, then you think about Saturday and Monday, which were reasonably testing days. We don't have anything like that on the forecast, although Friday is a watch out day because we've got an unstable atmosphere. You guys would have seen the big plumes of smoke go up on Monday. That was a result of purely a result of an unstable atmosphere. Same conditions on Friday, but without the heat and wind. So you're going to see plumes of smoke go up again on Friday. And then on the weekend, we've got really strong westerly winds, extremely strong. So we expect all of our fires to move towards the east in a reasonably big way on the weekend. Now, there is a hint of rain on the forecast, but I think we've been realistic about that as well. And you know, East Gippsland's often sheltered from those rain events that come out of the west. But we'd expect to see, you know, low-level snow and some quite cold. It's ironic, I know you probably have your fire going in your lounge Saturday night, and the fires will be burning on the back doorstep on the weekend. Now, we'll be taking every opportunity we can in these coming cooler days to try and get some back burning done and to try and consolidate these fires. But again, I want to paint a realistic picture. We've got running fire today after 15 mils of rain. When we put fire in the landscape, that creates its own challenges. So just be aware, try and stay aware as you can on when those burns happen and when those unstable weather days come, because they're the days you guys need to be on your front foot and be prepared. So in a nutshell, we've got probably, I think it's fair to say, the driest conditions that we've seen in East Gippsland, maybe since 2003 or in 1982 when we saw those big fires. We've got a drought index, or a KBDI, we measure that. That's on a scale of 0 to 200. 0's the wettest it can be, 200's the driest. It's around 160, so it's only 40 points off being off the scale, basically. So that, that just shows you how dry the forest is. We're starting to see eucalypt and banksia trees die in the forest, just die naturally from the drought stress or that dry soil index. I mean, all this stuff, you guys know all this stuff, but you need to understand that it's not a normal year. So when you get a normal year and you get bushfires, someone will say, oh, it'll stop at that creek, it stopped there in 97, or it'll stop on this track, or this is the year that it won't do that. So this is the year that you need to be thinking, no, I'm going to plan for the worst and prepare myself and my community for the worst. So mild, a bit of a milder spell of weather, and then we'll wait for the next hot day. And I also wanted to just remind us all that, we've got these 6 going fires. We actually rounded up 14 of them, but we haven't even started summer yet. So the next band of lightning that comes through, or the next person that accidentally, sets a spark off from their chainsaw or does something, they didn't really mean to do, we'll get more fires. So, the focus now at the moment's on what we've got, but also think about the season ahead, because it's going to be a long season. And we saw what's happening in New South Wales. They thought it was going to rain, and it still hasn't rained. And New South Wales had 129 new fires yesterday from lightning. So just keep all that information in your mind and get yourselves prepared. So I'm not here as a CFA person to talk about fire plans, but if anyone hasn't got any kind of plan, now's not the perfect time to put the pressure on the CFA to start this, but talk to someone and make sure you do have a plan. This is the sort of year, if you're going to work, or you drop the kids off at school, or you've got a doctor's appointment, make sure you've got your overnight bag packed, or make sure you've got your house in order, because you may not be able to get home on that same day, because a fire might cut your access, or it might even come down and impact on your house. So understand what your plan is, and please don't rely on other people to do things for you as an individual. Your plan needs to include, if there isn't a relief centre open for any reason, whatever the reason might be, or if you're feeling uncomfortable about not going home, that you know what your plan B is. Have you got enough money to pay for a motel? Have you got a family member you can go and see? Or have you got somewhere to go if a particularly bad fire day comes up? That's all the stuff you just need to be thinking about that you might not normally think about. We had a plan in Terrelgan on Black Saturday, and my wife enacted that because I was away at fires, even though we lived in the middle of town. So, it's just about knowing what's important, what are the important things in your life, and what you need to organise. It's also a good time to think about your neighbours and the rest of the community, and those people in the community, like I said at the start of my presentation, that may not be strong enough to speak up and ask for help, or that you might think, well, I wonder who does live in that house, and I wonder what their plan is if we get a bad day. So for the 6 Mile fire, for the one at the back of Bruthen, we need to be really watching for northwesterly winds. If you see smoke plumes, or if you just wake up on that day and you think, this day feels different to what I normally feel, they're the sort of watch outs, and then enact your plan. So I don't think I can even talk for 20 minutes, Will, but I'm hoping there'll be enough time. If that's triggered any emotions in anybody, your local Red Cross and your local health centre are certainly there to help people. We're not here to say, we're leaving everyone in the lurch. We're here for you. We're here for the community. We're fighting these fires with the community in mind. Everything we do is about community. We're trying not to disrupt people's lives. We're trying to keep roads open where we can. And when we have to close them, there's a good reason we close them. So please, don't think they're a challenge to get around. And if you need help, then this is the time, you need to lean on your neighbours and your friends and ask for that help. If you need something done on your property to get it prepared for the summer, talk to us. Come and see us. Talk to your local Forest Fire Management Vic office. Talk to your local CFA brigade, I'm sure we'll be able to help in some way if we can. Otherwise, work with your local teams and make sure your properties are prepared. Because when we come to defend, it's a lot easier if you've done the work around your property. It makes it a lot easier for our firefighters, that's for sure. It's open, is it? Right, okay, well there's some good news. So at the moment, as you know, the Great Alpine Road, we closed it on Monday because the fire actually crossed the Great Alpine Road. And it's another gentle reminder for us too. Think about Monday's conditions, not a very dangerous day. The FDI was only in the high range, which is blue on your scale when you do your fire plan. And we had fire crossing major breaks in the landscape, which included the Great Alpine Road and the Galanapie Road. So when we closed that road, we tried to reopen it straight away, and trees were continuing to fall because of the stresses of the dry conditions or the drought. He's playing his game. Oh, that's all right. So the Great Alpine Road is open. The only other road closure that's really of interest is the Galanapie Road, which we hope to have open at north of W Tree tomorrow. We're hoping. Yeah, Vic Poller here maybe talk about road closures perhaps. And there's an Ensay Buchan Road which is still closed. So all those road closures are listed on the Vic Roads webpage. Now hopefully you guys have all got the Vic Emergency app on your phones or your tablets. If you haven't, I can help you download it, or the CFA captains can help you download that, and that's the best place to get initial warnings, but also your local phone trees and whatever else your community has for warnings. So if there is a road closure, we haven't got many at all at the moment, but we expect to see some more on Friday and Saturday as these weather conditions come across the fire ground. I've literally just put this tab art on tonight, so that's no excuse for not knowing what's going on. I know exactly what's going on, but I am still coming to terms with some of the local roads and names and things like that.
Thank you very much, Andy. And if I could just clarify, I've just been told by our Shire representative that the Ensay Buchan Road is open currently. So I had that a bit wrong. It's a good illustration of the fact that this is a bit of a moving feast. So the last update I got was still closed. Update just now that it's open. So, and the best place to go to for information on which roads might be open or closed is the Vic Roads website. So one of the messages we've been trying to get out to the community generally is, if you're planning to go somewhere, have a look at the Vic Emergency app to see whether there might be fires on your path, and have a look at the Vic Roads website to see if the roads that you want to use are open, and check them daily as required. With that, I'd like to open the floor to questions. Blanche has got a microphone, so when you ask your question, if you could let Blanche know that you want to, let me know, but I'll make sure that Blanche knows that you want to ask a question, and we'll use the microphone partly so we can hear in here, and partly so that people who are watching online can hear. So Blanche, the lady with her hand up behind you.
Now, I'd like to know roughly just how much smoke over the next couple of days is going to be coming down, because we live at Lake Tyres. There's only one road going in and out. Now, my husband, he suffers with emphysema. The other day when the smoke came through, I had to put him in the car and send him to Bairnsdale, but at that couple of days in Bairnsdale, he's gotten very, very sick. I've got oxygen for him at home, but I find that the machine that I've got is too big for me to lift. I can't lift it and put it in the car or anything. So in the meanwhile, we're in Bairnsdale, I have to get him and take him up to the hospital just to get oxygen. But it's not just about him. I'm on the board at Lake Ties. I do have a concern for all the others. There's about 4 or 5 that suffers with emphysema and is on oxygen, but they've got portable bottles. But my worry is that they haven't got a car. They can't get off or on the block. So basically, the wind and everything with the smoke, it is a worry.
Thank you. That is a great question, and we do include smoke information in all our warning messages that go out. But perhaps I can introduce Dave Jones from the ambulance service, because I know that the ambulance service are hot on this issue. So Dave, a response from you?
It is a good question. Even this week in Lakes Entrance, once the air's cooled down in the evening, if the wind direction's right, the smoke settles in over towns like Lakes Entrance, Lake Tyers Beach, and it becomes a problem for people with respiratory problems. It's also unpredictable. You know, the fluky weather that we had yesterday that caused some of the fire behaviour that we saw, you can't predict which way the smoke's going to go a lot of the time. The best advice that can be given if you get caught in that situation unexpectedly is to stay inside, windows and doors closed, keep any air conditioning that's on in its recirculating mode so it's not bringing new air in from outside. But the best advice in situations where, you know, we think it might get bad, if you get an inkling that it's going to get bad, is to do what you did and to actually pack up and get the person who has their respiratory issues and take them to somewhere else, like Bairnsdale, where it might be, you know, might not be so smoky. You know, even a phone call ahead to family or friends in town and say, hey, how bad's the smoke at your place? Can we come over? I know that's difficult in the situation where people don't have transport, but that's where we have to rely on each other as a community, because we can't be providing emergency transport to everyone in that situation, particularly if it's preventative. If it's actually acute and the smoke is already affecting them and they are having trouble breathing and their usual management plans that they've set up with their general practitioners aren't working, that's the time where you need to start thinking about maybe calling for an ambulance. But we want to try and do all of the other preventative stuff so that that person doesn't get sick before we get to that point if we can.
Thank you very much, Dave. And I guess people would also remain alert to the warnings that have been given out about thunderstorm asthma, which has been a feature over the last couple of years, that sometimes thunderstorms set up a condition that where people's asthma conditions react. And I understand that we're not talking asthma, we're talking about a different issue, but it's all related. Other questions? Yeah, thank you, Dave. Dave was just pointing out that the EPA has set up monitoring stations in a couple of towns nearby to monitor the smoke, but it doesn't necessarily provide you with the ability to say, okay, today's going to be smoky and tomorrow's not, unfortunately. Other questions? The EPA does have its own website, and you should be able to check that data there. And I think it's also the EPA website that has advice on how to manage those sorts of conditions in that sort of environment. Thank you. Other questions?
Thank you. Can you please talk about the Bushfire and give us some scenarios of where it might go in the next week? We've got a fairly good idea of the weather over the next 7 days, and just to see where it's possibly going to head to.
Yeah, sure. Look, we do, I mean, some people are aware we do use a number of different computer-generated models. One of the ones that you guys might have heard of is Phoenix Rapid Fire. That's one of the models that we use to model the effects of fuel reduction burning and how our hazard reduction burns, make a difference in the landscape. With the way the wind is forecast in the next, probably, between now and maybe next Tuesday, we're expecting the 6 Mile Fire. I've got out of the way the microphone, the lens there, but it's going out towards the east and the northeast predominantly. and that's where it's moving today, out towards Buchan South. So that's what I talked about at the moment. The weather conditions are favourable for, you guys to get your properties prepared. Now, you never say never in the fire game. The last few days have been extremely challenging, not only for our firefighters, but for the Weather Bureau too, because we've had winds coming out of the northwest, then west, then south, then southeast, and the fire's moved on all different flanks. But with the big high pressure in the Great Australian Bight, we expect the winds to be more predominantly west and then west-southwest over the coming days. So we expect the eastern flank and the northern flank of these fire, so in this area here, to become more active, moving towards Buchan South. So it's only a prediction based on what the weather says, but we look at actual predictions every day or twice a day.
I think during the week.
Yep.
So if it got across the highway, I live in Veldens Road, and there was actually a mention of Veldens Road during the week as an alert and act and basically get out. So how long would it take, for example, under a fairly strong northwesterly, if it got across the Bruthen Now Road, either heading into Tuluam or Nowa?
Yep.
What sort of number of hours could you would you anticipate?
Yep, okay. Well, look, I suppose I'll be happy to talk over the map with you, because I'm not sure about where you are, but I'll just give you a bit of an example. Under these sort of conditions like we've got today, the fire's moving, and it will generally move at somewhere around 300-400 metres an hour, something like that, with its forward rate of spread, and it might send spots out potentially under these conditions, maybe 50 metres from the edge, okay? So when you get a little bit of wind, so if you've got a reasonable amount of wind, let's say you've got, 15 k's of wind in the forecast, so like a sea breeze, you might see the fire spread at 800 metres an hour, somewhere around that. If you've got a day like Monday, when you've got a bit more wind and an unstable atmosphere, you can see the fire move at up to 2.5 kilometres an hour and spot a kilometre ahead of itself. So basically on a day like Monday, you could expect to see fire move roughly 3 kilometres an hour through the landscape. A fire generally under, general conditions moves about 400 metres per hour. Yep. It's a dry landscape, so that's a sort of, it's, take this as rough advice. I'd be happy to look at the map with you and go over that in more detail. Yep. The other thing you can do is jump online and Google some of this information too. There's a couple of websites where you can punch in weather data, and in the eucalypt forest it will give you a rough estimate of how far fire moves. But the thing is, on a bad day, it'll move extremely fast, and you need to be out of the way. Don't use that as a rough guide. Please.
Okay, this one might be for Bounty. I noticed on Monday my phone was running red hot. Kerry from who's the principal at Tuluam, probably other schools surrounding, now whoever, the alerts that I've been getting inundated by phone calls to get people off the block and stuff like that. But I'm trying to settle people, but I'm not getting much information at all, only from what's on the app. And what comes up on my page is I need strike team leader and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not getting any information. I'd end up, because I know Glenn was pretty busy at that time, I didn't want to annoy District 11, but I had to end up ringing, I've become good friends with him, Trevor Owens, to give me a bit of information. So he's been emailing me all this information. But my concern is the alerts, like Tricia got a message on her phone to pick up the 4 kids from school early and stuff like that. So what do you say to parents and the community members that are stuck to get a ride out if I'm busy worrying about trying to organise things?
Well, yeah, sorry, that would sound like that happened on Monday, did it? Yeah. Look, it's fair to say Monday was a difficult day. I'm not making any excuses, and it's distressing for us when we hear that there's members in the community that were sort of tested on that day. So hopefully, I know we've written down some comments there, and we're listening to what you're saying. There were some things that happened on Monday, and one of them was in relation to the school that didn't come through the line of control. So some things just the community enacted. We're not, that it doesn't mean they were right or wrong, but one source of information is the warnings. Another source of information is your local contacts. Another source might be picking up the phone and talking to people like Trevor Owen. It doesn't matter what the source is. I just encourage you to use those sources. And it might be, I totally understand it might be distressing because everyone gets put under pressure on those days. That's the first thing to acknowledge. So, that's about that being prepared. So when the next day comes like that, and you hear that the school's been closed or something, hopefully there's a trigger there that you've set up for yourself to say, I'm going to ring such and such on that day to help me out or whatever. Because unfortunately, when things don't go well on those bad days, there's misinformation, there's information that goes out that's misunderstood, and sometimes there's wrong information. So you need to work out what source you're going to use and use that as a source, and then use other sources to validate. Because that school situation was not necessary, and it caused a bit of panic in the community that we apologise for. And that's really all I can say about that. Yep, I picked that up. Yep. So you're in a better position than most people because you're better connected. No. Look, I reckon I take this one offline too, and maybe we'll try and work out what you want us to do next time, and we'll see if we can do something a bit better for you. Yep. Right, uniform. Okay.
Greg Gaddis is my name. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a local landholder. It's great that everybody's got together to find out what's going on, but I'm thinking that we need to have another meeting, maybe in a month or so, and talk about why we have these situations. At the moment, we've gone from the 2011 fires out at Tostaree, where it was identified, and there's a booklet about so thick about all the problems that happened at Tostaree. One, for example, was underneath the power lines wasn't slashed, and you probably noticed on your way in that that's the same situation. The Shire haven't done slashing, lots of things like that, which are nothing to do with the people in the room here. It's to do with other, the money people. Anyway, so if we could get together and have a talk about that stuff, obviously today's not the day for it, but in the near future. And the other problem we have is during the winter we were going to have a burn which was on the side of Now, which would have given some protection. 2 or 3 people kicked up about it, so that didn't go ahead. We've also got a big planned burn out the other side of Tostaree, which fortunately the fire didn't get in there the other day. That hasn't gone ahead because of one person who stopped it. Now, maybe it's the time for a silent majority to jump in and start to sort a few of these things out. So I'm not speaking on behalf of the CFA, I'm talking about this from my own point of view. So, okay, maybe if we could have a meeting at another time. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Good comments. And just to mention about planned burning, we don't like to plug anything in particular, but there was a burn done recently here called Radar Hill. Well, it's on the edge of that 6 Mile Creek fire, and there's very strong evidence that that fire, that planned burn, helps steer this fire away from these communities. So, yeah, you make some good comments, and that's a good democracy at work. Let's all stand up for what we think's right in the community, and if that's what you want to do.
Hi, Sarah Walker. I'm just speaking on behalf of Buchan Primary School, so I'm the acting principal there at the moment, and I'm also speaking on behalf of Kate Hodge, the acting principal at Now Primary School. So our primary schools were closed yesterday, more based on the fact of accessibility for staff, especially with road closures. Having said that, just following up with Charmaine regarding Monday, the department was in constant communication with all the principals surrounded by the bushfires, so now Buchan, Bruthen, etc. They were in constant communication all day Monday with us via email and phone calls, and that has followed on again yesterday, even with the schools being closed yesterday and today. They're also calling schools as well who are surrounded by the local fires for any, if they want any support services put in place for the children who may have been evacuated, say from W Tree or Butchers Ridge or so forth. So the department is putting a lot of stuff in place behind the scenes to support the students and staff. And I know as well, I was just saying just before it, with the EPA as well, there is an EPA monitoring system at Buchan Primary School as well. So a lot of behind the scenes planning and communication is taking place on behalf of the department, and the principals are being constantly sort of communicated to with regard to road closures, school bus transport and so forth.
Yep, I just acknowledge that. Thanks, Sarah, and just acknowledge that there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes with all of the agencies that work in community, and that's a good example of how that works. So that's a direct line into our ICC, and my deputy incident controller manages that process. And you guys have to make very hard decisions, and they're not made lightly. So good job, and let's hope we can get through the rest of the school term without too many more disruptions.
Any work around the neighborhoods, around the housing, around the roads, or whatsoever. It's not there. I'd like to know what the role they play in that fire business.
Yeah. So is that so in a response phase?
Sort of repeat back the question.
Yeah. Okay. So is this about accessible water during the firefight, or just water on the roads? Oh, yeah.
For example, I got two huge cypress trees on the front of my house, 4 meters away from my roof. I asked the sheriff months ago to chop that down, to clear up that. I've done the rest of it in my property. They refuse. They reckon it's my responsibility on the crown land. It's not my responsibility,
Okay.
but as I know.
No, I understand. Yep. Okay. Well, we'll take that one offline, and we'll catch up with you after the meeting, and we'll talk that through. Yep. That's fine.
And that one little ember to come onto that
Yeah,
cypress.
yep.
I'm down the creek.
At least
In
you've
my
got.
family
Yep.
home gonna go the whole lot, only because attitude of the Shire is, I mean, they like a teacher in the bull there, the guys, honestly.
Yep. No worries. We'll take that offline. Yeah. But thank you for the question. Yeah, I can't answer that particular one as an incident controller, but we'll. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I'd just like to speak to the Incident Control Centre guys, I would like to see a little bit more communication so between yourselves and myself as the local brigade captain. Because I have people ringing me up all the time asking, questions, what's happening with the fire. I can't give them the answers. And I'd just sort of like to have a little bit more, at least one-on-one communication. We've got our brigade Facebook pages and, local, we can sort of keep a bit more contact with people that way, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's a good question. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the Sarsfield group. They're coming into the office and meeting with all the, I think it's 6 captains are coming in. I'm not sure how many is in that group, but there's a deputy incident controller as part of the structure, a CFA person. It's Glenn Harrop at the moment. So Bounty, I'm not sure whether you've got a contact through there, but if you ever need information, any of the CFA captains, all you got to do is either drive into Bairnsdale or pick up the phone and ask for a meeting, and it'll be forthcoming. As you know, in a typical day in a white tabard, there's not a lot of, it's a very tight schedule, but the door's absolutely open all the time to anybody that's got a question they want to ask. The desk is, staffed. During the course of the day, there's someone on night shift. Don't ever feel like the door's shut for that. Just got to ask.
Right, yeah.
We try and be as proactive as we can, and like I said, we're meeting with the Sarsfield group tomorrow because they've been impacted or just about have, and there's a lot of other people asking for info, but absolutely you're part of it.
Yeah, because I've made a lot of phone calls the last few days through the district in Bairnsdale, and they actually gave me the contact for Carmel through the ICC, and that's pushed very hard to try and get a meeting to happen here for this town and the local community, just to try and make everybody aware of what's sitting right on our doorstep up there.
I said when I came tonight, I'm here for the community as an incident controller. I've still got to manage, my 300 odd personnel that are assigned to the fire and make sure they go home safe. But I absolutely always have the time to talk about things that are important to the local brigade and local community.
Yep. Okay. And thanks for your time anyway, and just everybody keep safe. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mean retardants and... Yeah, look, I haven't got the exact numbers, but you guys might have seen the DC-10 come in the other day. The big large air tanker came out of Sydney and dropped a couple of loads, and we've had the large air tankers that are based in Avalon on this 6 Mile fire. We've got, you might not hear them or see them, they're working out of the Bairnsdale and Benambra air bases, but we've got a whole team dedicated to air attack. And they'll be out there now. In fact, I know they are out there now actively bombing the 6 Mile fire. So that's fixed-wing bombers with retardant, large helicopters, medium helicopters, and the large air tankers. So this 6 Mile fire is a priority fire. So it's getting a lot of attention from the state. And as you know, the season evolves and other fires start near different communities. But at the moment, we're getting what we ask for. Yep.
Updated?
Oh, I'm not sure what they are.
Yeah. Those council, I think I've got to get over here. Those council screens, so what they do is they rely on the feeds that come out of the Incident Control Centre through through DELP, CFA and Vic Roads. So as they update those. When they haven't updated them, that we just keep recirculating those ones through. So unfortunately, we sort of keep on trying to prompt more messaging, but yeah, that's the only method we've got of getting those feeds out. Okay.
Why isn't there just one website?
The Emergency Management Victoria website or the EMV.
But everything depends on something else.
Sorry?
It seems to be that
we're
you
taking
rely
the
on
feeds
somebody
off
else.
that. Yeah.
Why can't we just have one website?
I thought Vic Emergency was it.
Yeah, yeah, that's, and we get the feeds
So
off
why-
that. We get the feeds off that.
So what, I should be looking at your
No,
website
no,
too?
No. The screen there virtually mimics the Vic Emergency website.
It gets very confusing. It does, honestly.
Thanks, Shane. With that, I might close off the meeting. As I said, we have got people here from the services who would be happy to talk to you about your individual questions. Thank you all very much for setting aside some time from your lives to come and spend time to listen to us. And I absolutely respect that you're doing that in order to get a better understanding, in order to keep yourself safe. And at the end of the day, what we're wanting to do is keep the community safe from fires that, as Andy's explained, are unusually active and certainly warrant considerable precautions. Thank you very much to the Shire for getting us organised to be set up here tonight. That's much appreciated. Thank you, Stuart, for your words. Thank you, Andy, for yours. Really appreciate that. Thank you to Ambulance Victoria, Police and other agencies who've been here tonight. So with that, I will close off the meeting. But as I say, we won't be scooting out the door immediately. So if you want to stay on, you're welcome. We do have these maps you can look at, obviously, in another set over there. The intention of this one is that it shows the overall area that the incident control team are looking after across this part of East Gippsland. And then there's a bit more detail on this one, specifically about the Bruthen 6 Mile Track fire. I've got takeaways on the table as well, both maps and the latest community newsletter related to the fire. And there are also copies of the local incident management plan, which is your community developed safety plan. So if you don't have a copy of that, I'd strongly encourage you to pick one of those up and study it at home with your families. So with that, thank you very much.